In 2011, in a quiet American town, a young woman, let's call her Sarah, was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Her family was desperate. What started as subtle mood swings and social withdrawal had escalated into something terrifying. She was a bright, outgoing student, but now she was unrecognizable. The initial diagnosis was straightforward: a severe psychotic break, perhaps schizophrenia or a dissociative disorder. The hospital provided a sterile, clinical environment, a place of science and reason, meant to bring her back from the edge. Doctors and nurses began their routine evaluations. They were professionals, trained to handle the most extreme manifestations of mental illness, but Sarah's case began to defy their textbooks. During her first week, she exhibited calm, lucid moments, followed by sudden, violent episodes. She would thrash with a strength that seemed impossible for her small frame, requiring several orderlies to restrain her. Her voice, normally soft-spoken, would drop to a low, guttural growl, uttering phrases in languages she had never studied, including ancient Aramaic and Latin. The medical team was baffled. They ran every test imaginable: EEGs, MRIs, extensive blood work. Everything came back normal. There was no physical explanation for her condition. Nurses started reporting strange occurrences on the night shift. Objects would fly across her room when no one was near them. Cold spots would appear, and electronic equipment would malfunction in her presence. One seasoned nurse, a woman who had seen it all, documented in her notes: "Patients spoke of my deceased brother, mentioning details only I could have known. I am deeply unsettled." The line between psychiatry and the unexplainable was beginning to blur. Sarah would stare at doctors with an unnerving intelligence, a chilling smirk on her face, as if she was toying with them. She described intimate secrets of the staff, things she had no way of knowing. The atmosphere in the psychiatric ward, once a place of order, became thick with fear and uncertainty. Staff members started requesting transfers. Whispers of demonic possession, once dismissed as medieval superstition, began to circulate in the hospital corridors. Her family, devoutly religious, had suspected something more sinister from the beginning. Frustrated with the lack of progress and increasingly frightened by the hospital's accounts, they made a controversial decision. Against medical advice, they discharged Sarah from the hospital and sought help from their church. They found a priest, an experienced exorcist, who agreed to evaluate her case. The clinical world of white coats and sterile rooms was left behind for something far older and darker. The exorcism took place not in a grand cathedral, but in a simple, sparsely furnished room in the family's home. The only light came from a few flickering candles. The priest, accompanied by a small team of assistants, began the rite of exorcism. The change in Sarah was immediate and violent. The moment the holy water touched her skin, she let out an inhuman scream. The room grew intensely cold. She writhed on the floor, her body contorting into unnatural positions, her voice a chorus of mocking, blasphemous taunts. For hours, the battle raged. The priest recited prayers, his voice a steady anchor in the chaos. The entity within Sarah responded with rage, claiming its name was a legion, a multitude of spirits. It hurled insults, threats, and revealed more hidden knowledge, trying to break the will of those in the room. It spoke of historical events in gruesome detail, laughed at the priest's faith, and promised eternal damnation for everyone present. The air was heavy with an almost tangible malevolence. The assistants, holding Sarah down, felt a power that was far beyond human. The struggle continued for several days. Each session left the participants physically and emotionally drained. The entity's grip seemed unbreakable. It would laugh, declaring that God had abandoned them, that their prayers were meaningless noise. During brief moments of lucidity, Sarah would surface, her eyes filled with terror, begging for help before being violently submerged again. These fleeting glimpses of the real person trapped inside fueled the team's resolve. They were fighting not just against something, but for someone. On the third night, something shifted. As the priest commanded the entity to reveal why it had chosen Sarah, it let out a final, deafening shriek of pure hatred. It confessed through her lips that it had found a crack, a moment of despair in her life, and had latched on. With renewed fervor, the priest pressed his advantage, invoking the highest holy names, commanding the spirit to depart. The house shook, the candles extinguished, plunging the room into absolute darkness. And then, as suddenly as it began, there was silence. When the lights were turned back on, Sarah was lying on the floor, limp and unconscious. She was breathing peacefully. The oppressive cold atmosphere in the room was gone. replaced by a sense of calm. When she woke up hours later, she was herself again. She had no memory of the past few months, only a vague, dreamlike recollection of a terrible darkness and a feeling of being trapped inside her own body. Her voice was her own. The unsettling glint in her eyes was gone. In the weeks that followed, Sarah made a full and remarkable recovery. She returned to her studies, reconnected with friends, and rebuilt her life. Medically, her case remains an anomaly. Psychiatrists who reviewed her file were left with more questions than answers. Was it a rare, undocumented form of mental illness that spontaneously remitted, or was it something else entirely? The official records offer no conclusion, just a series of unexplained events. The doctors, the nurses, her family, they all witnessed something that defied logical explanation. The story of Sarah stands at the chilling intersection of science and faith, a modern testament to a phenomenon that has haunted humanity for centuries. It forces us to confront the limits of our understanding and to ask what truly lies within the shadows of the human mind. The case was closed, but the questions it raised linger, a disturbing reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we cannot explain. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as unsettling as we did, be sure to subscribe for more explorations into the unknown.